we're at school from 8:30 to 3 or whatever the time is, and usually before you came home and then you could be yourself, but now with social media you're online 24/7. So you do have to kind of change your personality online as well. It's the idea of this online uncanny valley effect.
In 1837, Horace Mann created the education system, a system at the time designed to pump out factory workers and professors. The same system that is still being used today in the 21st century. Now, Mann's system is backfiring. We are being moulded by the same industrial system that has existed for close to 200 years. That system delivers us into a digital economy that has no need of our outdated skills. This isn't our teachers' fault. This isn't the government's fault. This is due to a rapidly changing world full of technology and unforeseen circumstances. And us Gen Zs are caught in the middle. Welcome to the Driven Young Podcast, the podcast for stressed, overwhelmed young Australians, teaching you practical life skills you can implement now to set yourself up in life. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the Driven Young Podcast. Today I'm joined by 21-year-old new author Logan Ayers. Logan is a legend. He just published his first fiction novel at the age of 21 called An Outsider on the Inside. This book is about a unique coming-of-age tale that follows an atypical ambivert, Zac Kallest. Zac is, by most definitions, normal, and he likes it that way. Being normal means you get to steer clear from the ever-painful social structures of high school and can altogether avoid the unnecessary drama. But as a moment forces him into the social spotlight, he is required to navigate his way through waves of teenage gossip, family-fueled embarrassment, and just plain old puberty, in an effort to unearth a way back to consistent normality. This is something I'm sure so many of you can relate to going through high school. We often talk about how as young people we are wearing multiple different masks depending on the group we're with, depending on which friends we're with, and we struggle to show our truest self based on fear of judgment. So today, Logan and I dive deep into this topic. We talk about his experience at an all-boys private school, how school crushed his love for creativity, and how important creativity is. We get into networking and how to meet new people, and how he got a full-time job 6 months before graduating his degree, and so much more. As per usual, if you enjoy this episode, please reach out to myself or Logan on Instagram. Logan would love to have a chat with you, and so would I. Also, please consider leaving a rating on Apple Podcasts if you enjoy the show, and make sure you are following myself and the Driven Young Podcast on Instagram to stay updated. I've got lots and lots of new cool stuff coming into 2021, projects that I want to get all of you guys involved with and connect you guys with other awesome people, and it's going to be a lot of fun, so definitely follow along there to stay updated. Now, over to Logan. Logan, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Really excited to have you on today and get into your book, which we have here, An Outsider on the Inside, you've called it. Mm-hmm. And this is a fiction book.
Yes.
So it's a story that you've written. And how old are you right now?
I'm 21.
So you've written a fiction book by 21, which is awesome. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But before we get into that, I'd love to hear a little bit about your story, your high school experience, coming out of high school, and what you did after high school and what you're currently up to.
Yeah, awesome. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure.
So I guess by day I'm a creative strategist at an advertising agency, and by night, I guess I'm a bit of an author, and that's kind of been the side hustle for a few years. But I guess in context of this interview, the journey kind of started around year 7, year 8, where everyone was kind of going into high school and they were going into their different cliques and stuff like that. And I always felt like I didn't really belong in any of the cliques. And it was kind of really hard to find out who I was. So I adjusted, my personality depending on, the different groups. So if it was sport, I adjusted my personality to fit in with the sport people. If it was, music, I tried to be a bit more flamboyant or something like that. And that's kind of where this idea of the book came from, was from that high school experience of trying to fit in and trying to be normal, because really that's all what kids want these days.
Yeah, I mean, isn't that kind of what we're trying to achieve during high school?
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the thing that I feared the most, was this idea of judgment. I was so scared of it. Coming out of high school, I found out that that's a lot of people. And that, that really inspired me to tell a story that wasn't so set with the stereotypes that Hollywood's depicted. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And so, I mean, it's very interesting you say that, like, coming out of high school, you realize that it wasn't just you. And I feel like there's so many things we could talk about in that, because, like, I feel like you come out of high school and there's so many things you realize, oh, I wasn't just me. I wasn't the only one who was bad at exams.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one who didn't feel like this was for me. I wasn't the only one who didn't fit in or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really important to understand that, I would say majority struggle with exactly that.
Exactly.
Adapting your personality for whatever group you're in. And I feel like I'm quite good with it, but I still, I'll catch myself. I'll be in a group of people and they'll say something and they might be talking and I'll kind of agree with them, or I'll softly change my personality or my fundamental beliefs to fit in with them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like with our generation, it's been really tough as well, because, we're at school from, 8:30 to 3 or whatever the time is. And usually before, you came home and then you could be yourself. But now with social media, you're online 24/7.
Yeah.
So you do have to kind of change your personality online as well. It's the idea of this online uncanny valley effect, which is essentially like uncanny valley effect is where there's a CGI character and it just doesn't look right. Whereas online, your online self just isn't you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So yeah, the book is about fitting in, coming of age, and yeah, I guess trying to accept that everyone's different.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And so you graduated high school and you felt like, you were jumping between different personalities, between different groups, and you started to start the book. And so what's the book about? It's fiction, obviously.
Yep.
Which means, for anyone who forgets, fiction means it's not real. So you've made it up and you've created a story around. So I guess you had a problem you wanted to tackle and you've created a story around it, which I love, because I feel like we need to be embedding storytelling into our teaching more often.
Absolutely.
Because we can sit here and talk about, oh, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing this. But if we actually wrap a story around it, create a character that people can associate themselves with and kind of see themselves as that character, and then you take them through a journey using storytelling, and that's how you get your point across.
Exactly.
It can be so powerful.
Yes.
So what was that process like? How did you come up with the story? The whole kind of thing.
It was kind of a unique process. Which is really odd. I hated reading as a kid. I really did. I think in high school, I read one book in totality for any assignment ever. The rest I just went online and did the quick chapter search. And the book was Lord of the Flies, and I don't know.
I did Lord of the Flies.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just connected with it. I don't know why, and I just read it throughout. And then I got into this idea of storytelling through film, which I know you're a fan of as well. And I think a lot of people our age, we connect with visual first. And then I was like, oh, okay. Maybe I should start getting into the film stuff and, doing a few short films and stuff like that. But then one day, I decided just to pick up a pen and write. I didn't know what it was. I had no direction whatsoever. And I didn't know that it was going to become a book or anything like that. But I wrote about, the first 2,000 words really, really fast, like within the night that I started. And I was like, okay, this is actually could be a really cool story. And throughout, I just added on to it. And the fact, it's very daunting for a lot of people to start writing a book because they see the end goal of 64,000 words, which is what this is. And they're like, oh, there's no way I can do that. But I just slowly chipped away. Like this book took 3 years to finish.
And if you break down that word count, divide it by 3 years. Yeah. It's like 400 words a day or something?
Yeah.
Which is not hard.
Exactly.
To do 400 words a day.
Exactly. So actually what I did is, at the start of last year, I found this website that had a schedule on it. So if I write on the first day, just one word. On the second day, 2 words, 3 words.
Compounding sort of thing.
Exactly. All the way up to 365. At the end of a year, you have a book of 64,000 words.
No way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Which is sick, right? But everyone, again, sees the end goal and they don't see, how easy that they can be broken down into.
Which is important when we talk about goal setting.
Exactly.
Like, it's great to have big goals,
yeah,
but often big goals, you set them, they're too daunting, you never achieve them. So it's all about how can we break this down into something that's a 6-week, sprint or something, or something that's, 1 word, 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's really important.
It's literally like a tick off thing. So if I sat down at the end of a day and I'm really tired, I can decide to write just 6 words. But it never ends up like that. Because once you start, you get the inspiration and you're just like, okay, might as well just keep going.
And it's getting that first word on the page.
Exactly.
Because once you get the first word, you're like, oh, I'm sitting here, I've got my water, I've got my computer in front of me.
Yep.
I can, I've got 10 minutes, I might as well bang out a few hundred words while I'm here.
And that 10 minutes just goes on, especially if you're in it and you're like really feeling it. then you just continue to type. And I got inspiration at like really weird points. So if like you and I were having a conversation on a walk or something, and I noticed like a cool word or a cool sentence that you wrote, I would like go in the car after we've had our conversation and just put the camera recording, and I'd just speak for like a good 10 minutes on how I could kind of develop that a little bit more. So yeah, that was kind of a strange creative process. But yeah, I think if I were to do this again, which I'm planning to, I would be very strategic with the maybe post-it notes on the wall, planning it out a bit more, because I didn't know the ending for this.
So you've got the whole book planned before you write it.
Exactly.
You've got all the main chapters sorted out, the main kind of character arcs, the main hero's journey sort of thing. Yeah. Because I was going to say that's how I would want to do it, because otherwise it's like, because the thing is, I'd love to know the end of a book so I can seed in red herrings or foreshadowing
Easter
sort of thing. Yeah.
No, that's definitely a good idea. But for this one, it flowed really easily. I don't know how I ended up at the ending that I did. It just kind of happened, and it felt really natural. And from the people that have read it so far, they've said it's kind of one of those books that you do get through it pretty fast, because it does have that natural flow, which is kind of what I was going for, because you don't want it to be that long slog, where it's like a thick book and you're just like, oh, is this ever going to end? But yeah, I had no intention to publish it at the start, which was super interesting. I actually heard the other day from one of your other podcasts was the idea of writing for yourself or
audience and
none.
Yeah, super important concept.
So for me, that first reader was super important. Like, I just gave it to a friend and I was petrified. Yeah. Because like a part of me is in that story. No matter what author says otherwise, the
character's always going to have
exactly. So it's part of me that I'm literally releasing, and I'm a very private person. So the fact that I'm kind of releasing this into the world is terrifying.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. Like, I'm keen to read it, and I would just want to point out how writing a book isn't an option at school, right?
No.
Everyone I bring on the podcast, I wanted to bring you on because, you've got a cool story. You're 21, you've written an awesome book. It's published here. You got the cover and everything. Looks amazing. And it's not an option. Now, I'm not saying school should promote writing a book as an option, but the fact that it's very... we wouldn't even consider it.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds and hundreds of pathways that no one even considers, because school doesn't really teach us those options, and it's very pigeonholed into the one direction. Yeah. And so how did you find, I guess, going out on a limb and writing a book and doing, you're studying are you studying marketing, or
I've done marketing. Yeah. So I just finished the degree.
And so how was the experience, I guess, graduating high school? Did your friends, write a book as well? What happened? I know you went to private school, so you got a bit of that experience. How was that for you?
Yeah, there was no creativity whatsoever.
Yeah.
Again, it was very pigeonholed to the accountants, lawyers, traditional business people. And as an all-boys school, a lot of clashing egos, a lot of testosterone being thrown around.
Sort of thing. Wall Street guys.
Yeah. And especially being a rugby school, it was a good competitive nature, which kind of helped a little bit. But again, I felt very different being a creative-minded person.
Yeah. Bit of a toxic nature.
Exactly.
Like it can be good because it brings everyone up that competitive side. But then if it goes too far, it can be a bit toxic and cause a bit of grief between the groups.
If I kind of went to a different school, or if the system was changed a little bit, I would have started creativity, a lot earlier. But I feel like I only embraced it after high school because I got to choose. Whereas like when you're in the school, there's already a schedule planned out for you. So, I was doing English at 9 and math at 10, but there was no room for that creativity.
And I guess, English is important, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, you've written a book, so English, you use as English skills, but then it's like, I think they could be doing so much more. And I know I've only got one perspective because I've only gone to one school, right? But English, it was a lot of just essay writing. It was a lot of memorizing stuff. It was like you weren't even writing the essay, you're just memorizing certain parts from other people's essays and stuff. And that's how you kind of get good results. And in the creative writing, it was such a small part of it, I found.
Yes.
Like, we spend like 80% of our time. So to give clarification, when I went through, I'm not sure about you, but like you had your multiple short answer questions in your English exam.
Yep.
Then you had your, 1 or 2 essays, and then you had your creative piece writing.
And so we didn't even have the creative piece writing.
Oh, you didn't even have...
No.
Oh, you didn't get a creative writing.
No, we had the long essay, so the short answers at the start, and then extended response, whereas
Wow.
like you had to include your references and your annotated stuff. Even in the exam, you had to like literally memorize where you got the references from.
Yeah, so no, we had creative writing, which was good,
Yeah.
but to bring my point home, it was like 90% was on the essays and 10% was on the creative writing,
Yeah.
despite the fact that creative writing was probably like 30% of your marks. And it's because they were just like, and the creative writing was like, once you've done your essays, once you've done a short answer, now you've, whatever time you have left, you can pump out a creative writing.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do we putting so much effort into the essays and so much more, less time on the creative writing, when I think the creative writing is the most important piece?
Exactly.
And you don't, not just because you're a writer, but like that creativity is so important when it comes to so many things.
Yeah, it's about, even if you're going into that business or the, economic world, you do have to think creatively as a, problem solving, right?
Yeah. Critical thinking.
Critical
sort of thing.
thinking, exactly. So it's, again, I have no idea why our creativity stops pretty much like in year 4.
Yeah.
Like, why can't we make stuff in class
Yeah.
and like, go into writing rants and...
What's funny you say that, because we did a little experiment at this retreat, which you've probably heard me talk about. And it was basically called interest mapping. And you basically get like a piece of paper, everyone gets 5 minutes, and they say, write all your interests on this piece of paper. And just go nuts. And so I went to town, I was just like, I like this, I like sport, thought about sports, and I thought, I'm interested in equality, rights, all these different things. So I went from my sports, my personal hobbies, to political beliefs, to equality, to I was just writing everything I could, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of it, we kind of analyze what we said. And a lot of people really struggle with that. They're like, I don't know what I'm interested in. And so a lot of people would get, maybe 5 minutes, I'll get like 10 things they're interested in, maybe 20 or something.
Yep.
But you do this with kids. You give them this piece of paper who are like, 10 years old, and you say, write what you're interested in. And they fill the page. Dinosaurs, sports, cars, racing. And it's just all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we give it to people who've just gone through school, adults, and they can't even think of many. And it's like, look at what's happened from here to here when we've gone from kids to adults, and we've just lost that creativity.
Exactly. I don't know where it happens is they've put us in a box nearly. They're like, okay, this is kind of what you're going to do. This is what we're going to teach you. Don't think outside the box.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, change doesn't happen without creativity.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, it's so important into any industry you're going to. I think it's more important now than ever, because without creativity, if you're just memorizing facts and you've got that kind of that knowledge, that math knowledge, or that whatever it is, that's going to be replaced by computers in the future. Like math is very replaceable up until a certain degree.
Yeah.
But
the basics, but
instead of needing 10 people with it, you only need 2 people with a bunch of computers.
Yeah.
And they can do the stuff above it. And so having creativity is something that's not going to be replaced anytime soon. And critical thinking, I think is so important.
Exactly. Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
I'm actually reading this book at the moment by Kevin Roberts. It's called 62 Shots. And he's basically describing the world by an old army terminology. It's called VUCA. And the word is so volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. And that is how he sees the world. And every now and again, there's that one optimist who switches the thinking and switches the, VUCA into positive. And that's where the creativity happens, when you're not in this VUCA world. And that's what I kind of see school as. It's the necessary evil. People are just going through it for the sake of going through it.
Yeah.
But, we can use that time so much better.
Yeah, and I hate to be a school basher, because I do talk about this probably too much on the podcast. I'm not. This isn't supposed to be an episode just complaining about school, right? Like, we actually want to provide some value.
Yeah.
But it's just understanding that it's okay if you feel this way, because a lot of people will be like, oh, but this is how it's been for 200 years. This is what. Well, my parents say it's great. Oh, I'm actually learning stuff at school. When it's like, yeah, but you could be learning more important skills.
Yes.
It's like, we're not saying we don't learn stuff.
Yeah.
We're saying you don't learn relevant stuff.
Yeah. It's nearly, because with this book, right, I had to do it in my spare time because of, as soon as I went to university, that was, taking up the 9 to 5 stuff and all the assignments after that. So it was, that was the fun escape for me, was writing that. Whereas, at school, I just didn't have that opportunity. And I didn't know I could do that, because I was so set in my schedule. But yeah.
Yeah, no. But I mean, once again, congratulations, because it's, and I've been writing a chapter, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, especially, I think writing it is easy. It's the editing, which is hard.
Oh, yeah. I've read it so many times.
Yeah. You probably hate it by now.
Yeah. It's again, I'm just super nervous for like people I know to read it. I'm okay
Yeah.
for complete strangers to be like, okay, I'll give it a read. And they leave the reviews and stuff. But it's as soon as people I know, it's like, terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's daunting, and it's putting yourself out there.
Exactly.
Which I think, and who knows how many doors that could open. Like, you might come on the podcast, someone might, listeners might go buy it, or, they might reach out to you, or whatever happens.
Yeah.
It's just kind of building your personal brand, which I say is really important.
Yep.
Building your personal brand is going to allow you, because if you put on your resume, you've written a book or something, there's nothing to do with marketing, but it's impressive. Like, it shows that you've got that discipline.
Yeah.
But I did want to link into what you said about university. So you went straight into university.
Yeah.
For marketing degree.
Yes.
And that was 3 years, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was that?
Yeah, no, it was, I think I needed it. I know you obviously talked about, the negative connotations of university. But for me, it was about growing up. I don't think I was, if I went straight into work or anything at 18, I was definitely not ready.
Yeah.
But the biggest experiences came from traveling, for sure. So study abroad.
So you studied abroad?
Studied abroad,
oh, nice, man.
yeah.
That's awesome.
Went to Canada. The whole experience was so cool.
Yeah.
And then I got the travel bug and went to South America and Nepal last December. Which was so cool. Just because in Nepal, you like switched off completely because there was no Wi-Fi when we got to the mountains, and we went to Everest Base Camp. And yeah, it was just switching off the phone, no, text from the outside world, which could have been interesting in a COVID world. In like, how fast COVID happened?
Yeah, you wouldn't
imagine.
realize.
Exactly, yeah. Apparently there's this guy in New Zealand who went on a massive hike during the peak of COVID, and he only just found out that the borders were locked, like as he got back.
No way.
Yeah.
Far
and
out.
the guy on the cruise who did a round the world cruise.
Oh, yeah.
190 days or something, and now he just realizes that the world's in chaos. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
No, that's so important. And like traveling, because that's what I mean. Like, you can take advantage of university. There are traveling options.
Absolutely.
Like, I think if you're going to learn, might as well travel while you do it.
Yeah.
What an
for sure.
awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
And you're going to meet cool people, you get cool experiences, and you're getting your diploma or your degree at the same time. It's like, in my opinion, it's a win-win-win. Obviously, COVID right now has kind of crushed that options. But, Australia's going to open up soon. That sounds it. You can be going to different places. Maybe you go to Canberra for a bit. Maybe you go to Perth for a bit. Maybe you go to Sydney for a bit, or you go to the Gold Coast, or I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be options where you can do more than just sit at home in your bed watching online lectures.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's all about, especially with marketing and the degree of, advertising and networking and stuff like that. Yeah, it is about getting to know people. People are at the center of marketing and most business degrees, right? So within your time at university, you have to make as many connections as you possibly can. So study abroad was good because, now I have connections all around the world. But within Canberra specifically, as soon as I got into university, I was connected all throughout Canberra.
Yeah.
So I would recommend going to somewhere like, Sydney or Melbourne, where there's a lot of different, marketing places if you're going down that route. But
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And so when you got your degree, did you get a job straight away? How was that searching for a job?
Yeah. So I got a job about 6 months before I actually finished uni as a creative strategist. So I interned at this specific company for 2 days, and then they offered me a full-time job, which was pretty cool. But power of internships again. As soon as you just make the connections and you just got to do your very best, and 100% think that internships are the way to go.
Was that paid?
Nah.
Yeah,
no.
free.
Yeah. But
because I've been putting out content. I put a lot of content out about working for free and stuff. And man, I get ripped apart in the comments. People will be like, no, know your worth, know your value, never work for free. People taking advantage of you. And I'm like, it drives me nuts because I'm like, that's such a bad mindset to have.
Yeah.
If you're 50 years old with 30 years experience going to something, sure, don't work for free.
Yeah.
But if you're 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, if you're anything below 30 and you don't have that much experience, I don't consider it working for free.
You're getting paid with experience.
You're getting paid with connections and experience, which are going to lead to more money in the future.
Yeah.
And a job that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Would you rather work for free in an internship 6 months before you graduate and go straight into a well-paying job like you did? Or would you just not work for free and instead do nothing, just do your degree, graduate, and then start looking for a job, and now you do nothing for the next 6 months while you're looking?
Yeah.
You've just made money in that 6 months while they haven't. And I just think it's such a broken mindset to have.
Exactly.
That's how I started out. Or even if it's not for free, having that mindset. So when I started out, I actually got Glenn, when I landed my job with Glenn, he paid me, but I said I was willing to work for free, and I knew that's what he wanted.
Yeah.
But he paid me anyway.
Yeah, it's such an interesting mindset. And I just don't like the people who go into internships with that like single-minded, direction that they're going to go.
Yes.
They need to be very open and very willing just to adapt. I think, the ability to adapt in, especially in today's market is one of the most essential tools and traits that you can have. And I think that's why, during COVID, a lot of people struggled because they couldn't adapt, right? I don't know where, we were so happy and so closed off in our little bubble that as soon as something bad happens, everyone fell apart.
Yeah.
But back on the internships, I think that there's no risk, especially if you're at home. Like there's no, why do you need to get paid anyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't mean you're so entitled. Like you're 19, you don't need $60,000 a year.
Exactly.
It's like just appreciate, or you're 20 or 21 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's like appreciate the opportunity. And once again, that internship might not lead to a job directly, but understand even if they don't hire you, if you work really hard, show them you're a hard worker, provide value to them, and at the end of it, they're gonna if they can't afford to hire you or whatever, they're gonna go, how can we help you?
Yeah.
You worked really hard, and you say, oh, I'm looking for this. Maybe they can introduce you to someone or something. And then 1,000 doors.
Yeah, I think that added value is really important. Like, what can you add that these guys don't already have? Even if it's like getting coffees.
It is.
You get coffees, the best that they've ever seen. You add something to it. You're like, oh, coffee and a bagel as well. What else do you want? Just add something to it.
Do more than is asked of you.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that. If you do more than is asked of you, which was Brent's number one piece of advice, episode 32 of my podcast, we spoke about it so much, and he says, what's your number one piece of advice? Do more than is asked of you.
Yeah.
If that's all you do in your life, you're going to do well.
Yeah.
Especially because this generation, in the past 5 years, I speak to a lot of people, Brent, one of them, who's been working with young people for 20 years. He says the past 5 years, he's noticed a massive shift in this generation in terms of people were scared to put their hands up at his events. Normally he can identify the leaders, and he's saying, it's harder to find the leaders now. There's less and less. People aren't speaking up. It's like, it's not that hard to stand out now if you just do more than is asked of you.
Yeah. I wonder where that leadership trait comes from. I think sport's very important for that, which is why I was a massive fan as a kid of all the different sporting stuff that happened. I think it's so important in terms of, future development, especially working with a team and stuff like that.
So important.
Yeah.
I actually, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're up.
I started an indoor team with some of my friends, and one of the girls has never played sport before. And you can see it. She doesn't understand the team dynamics and stuff. Yeah. And it's like, I was kind of getting annoyed at her, and then I was like, wait, she's never ever played sports before. This is completely new to her. And I was like, oh man, that's crazy. I've just grown up with sports my whole life. So just, you've got to play as a team. Who cares who scores a goal? Yeah. The team scores a goal. It doesn't matter who gets it in the net. If you're more valuable in defense or attack or whatever, you've got to work as that unit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's in that competitive nature as well. Like the more willing you are to put in the work, the more willing you are to succeed, right? I think the competitive nature is so important in people. Yeah. And so you guys, rugby school, was that NRL? Or?
Union, but again, skinny white bloke. I didn't do that. So I was cricket, AFL for a bit. Yeah. And mostly cricket though. Yeah, nice. Yeah. I
love that about the internship, because you've probably heard me talk about university, and like I do talk down on it a lot, but but then the most important thing is, because I know most people are still going to go to university. It's like, if you're going to go to university, take advantage of it. Try get internships, build your connections while you're there. Do everything that you can to really, travel. Go to Canada. Yeah. It sounds like you had a really good uni experience because you took advantage of what they offered. Yeah,
I think I was the exception, not the rule, for sure. I put in the work so that I could, be in that position where I did have a job at the end of my degree, which is through, different communities and groups. There's one called UCOMS, which is University of Canberra Advertising and Marketing Society. So I did that route as well. But I did try to make the most of it, for sure.
Yeah, and it's so important.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I'd love to know your advice for anyone who's looking to go into a marketing degree, because the thing is, with a marketing degree or a business degree, or a lot of these degrees, they're not like a doctor where you need the degree to get in. There are other ways to get in. And so what would your advice be to someone who's about to start studying that?
Yeah, it's super interesting, because often the people that are going to hire you are the, old white men who think you need the degree. But if you want to innovate, like, I don't think that you need it. And especially with creativity, you won't get taught creativity at university either. Yeah. So this marketing degree was purely business and, you know, the direction of marketing that way, you know, the four P's and the 7 P's and all this different, you know, the acronyms around there. But, you know, am I going to use that in a creative space? Absolutely not. So you need the balance, I think. I think you do need probably a year in the business mindset and learning the structure of researching and stuff like that. But then you also need to balance that with, you know, a creative thing, whether it's a book or whether it's, you know, a short film. I do think if you're going into marketing, you need a creative outlet for sure.
And so how do you recommend we get creativity? You were saying school, and there are some schools that are innovating and stuff, but overall the system is a bit of a creativity crusher.
Yeah.
You know, there's that image of, you know, kids are all happy and it's bright and they go through this machine and they come out just like with a suit on and start walking out.
Yeah, baby boss.
Yeah. And so how do you think we can start, you know, find ways to build that creativity on our own outside of school or uni or work or whatever?
I mean, I think it was like what you're saying with, the 5 people around you are a reflection of you.
Yes.
So surrounding yourself with people who are willing to be creative and who are, I think it's the idea of willing, because if you're closed off and, you know, single-minded, that's when, you know, you fall into the stereotypes. Whereas, you know, if you're willing and if you're open, then, you know, creativity happens, I guess.
It's funny you say that because, you know, how do we start off this conversation? By talking about the different groups.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can bring, because the 5 people you hang around with, they say, you know, you're going to earn the same amount of money as the closest 5 people in your life.
Yeah.
So you're surrounded by millionaires, there's a high chance you're going to become a millionaire. Or, you know, whatever it is that you want, you know, environment dictates performance. So if you want to get more creative, find more creative people.
Yeah, exactly. And you see the ideas, you can definitely see it on TV when you see, you know, a specific advertisement and it's very normal. You can see that,
like car ads.
Yeah,
they haven't changed in decades.
Oh god,
it's just like a car going down the road with a nice, you know, camera dolly, and there's like that Jeep music or whatever. It's like, and then it comes on the sand, and there's like a mum and a dad who smile.
Exactly. It's
hasn't
like
changed.
where's the influence of creativity in that? It's so single-minded. I feel like if you have a lot of different people in the room with a lot of different creative ideas, that's just where, you know, things happen. You know, sparks fly.
Well, Hungry Jack's, I don't know if you've just seen their new campaign.
Which one was that one?
The glasses. So Hungry Jack's just released like 5 different coloured glasses, and every time you buy a large meal, you get a glass.
Oh,
Coke did it.
They've done it with Macca's. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, Macca's did it with the Coke glasses. Yeah. That would have been a partnership. But yeah, they released like green, blue, collect all the glasses basically. Yeah. Which is cool. That's the campaign on their own. But now it's become a challenge on TikTok where people use the glasses and make like a song. Yeah. Okay. And it's like hashtag Hungry Jack's challenge or something like that. Yeah. Because I saw it in the trending and people are like using the glass and making a beat, like the cup song sort of thing. Yeah. And I was like
pitch perfect.
Brilliant. Like that's innovating.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we're talking about it. And this clip might be on TikTok, and now it's getting more word of mouth. Yeah. Like, that's so much better than just some ad with it, like, come try out the new burger or whatever.
Exactly. And I think that's driven by brands. Advertisers are usually by nature, obviously, more creative. But as soon as, like, there's the business head who's like, no, we have to stick to the normality that is, you know, our brand guidelines, that's when, it's, you know, fitting us in a box. Like, you know, release the cap and see what creativity floods out. Yeah,
exactly. And it's just, you see it everywhere. It's cool to see. I think Chipotle has done another one. They did like a partnership with David Dobrik or something. Yeah. And they had to like, you'd flip the box of the Chipotle, get it to land, and that got like 1 billion views combined across videos or something.
I mean, as soon as you put David Dobrik in it, you've got a winner there.
Yeah, exactly. But they are creative ways, and you can see like it's so fun. We're both kind of in marketing. It's like, look how creative you can get. Yeah. You know, I'm doing this TikTok, you know, I put my podcast on TikTok. Not many people, when I started that, were doing that because you've got to film it and you've got to do all this, you know, there's a lot of editing and a lot of work. Yeah. And so for me, maybe that's why it took so long to do it, because no one else was doing it and I didn't have anyone to copy.
Yeah. It's often like, I think I heard it on this podcast actually where, you know, there was that one guy dancing and then Yeah. It's like herd mentality, right? Like if one person starts, you know, then they're the innovator. But as soon as other people start, it's like, it just becomes a trend, right?
But here's the thing, you don't have to be the innovator, because like Google wasn't the first search engine. Facebook wasn't the first social media platform. Yeah. There was MySpace, there was Yahoo, there was Bing. They just did it better. You know, they took the concept and workshopped it and innovated within the concept, and then they did it better. So it's not saying you have to be the very first person to come up with it.
It's an early entrant for sure.
But if you can get in and innovate on whatever that is.
Yeah.
So, for you maybe you've innovated, you've written this book. Obviously, there are lots of fiction books out there.
Yeah.
You've kind of gone
What's
through.
What's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference? And so you've gone through and you've figured out your problem and you've written a story around it.
Yeah.
And now, who knows what opportunities that's going to open for you.
Yeah. And it's obviously going to be super difficult as a first-time author to kind of get the word out there. Often, like, novelists these days have a bit of, backing by the publishers because they're like a well-known person. That's why, like, if there's a celebrity who writes a book, it goes straight into the number one bestsellers, right?
Yeah.
Whereas this one, it's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, it's kind of that teenage market. My comparison to it is Perks of Being a Wallflower and Looking for Alaska. So those are kind of the references for it. But obviously, in comparison to that, I need a bit of traction behind it. TikTok's obviously a good platform to connect with young individuals, and social media, of course. So we'll go from there.
Have you heard about the New York Times bestseller list and how it's like
how it's generated?
Yeah,
isn't it just paid for?
It's just their opinion.
Yeah,
they just like the New York Times seller just go, let's put this on based on what people are kind of enjoying and stuff. It's not actually the bestsellers.
Yeah,
and so. Seth Godin does a whole episode on it on his podcast, and he breaks down like how it's really corrupt and how he doesn't want to be on the bestseller because every single book, every guy comes on stage and goes, "Here's my book. I'm a New York Times bestseller." It's
exactly.
Like, everyone seems to be a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
How is your value if everyone has it?
Yeah,
it can't be that hard to get it because it's just connections. It's not you're a bestseller.
Yeah,
and then once you get on the list, then you become a bestseller.
Yeah, no, if I could be on that list, that'd be great. So any networks out there,
but it's it's very corrupt.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't remember. It's a very cool story if you want to look into it.
Yeah.
But it was just like it links back to that. Who you know is it's not what you know, it's who you know. When it comes to writing a book, when it comes to releasing music, should you be an artist first and a marketer second, or a marketer first and an artist second?
Yeah.
Most of the big people who are blowing up right now, they did really incredible marketing campaigns through TikTok.
Yeah.
That's the biggest music platform right now.
Absolutely.
Have you heard the story of, that song that went massively viral, Old Town Road or something?
Yeah. Is that Lil Nas?
Yeah. Have you heard his story? And how they just basically put it everywhere, and they tried to turn the song into a meme, and they just like pumped it everywhere. They were like, they had a whole team like putting it out everywhere, trying to make that like into a meme, and eventually it caught fire and then just blew up.
It was with Billy Ray Cyrus, wasn't it?
Yeah. But when they released it, it didn't go that big.
So then they just created some
memes
and GIFs and
memes, put it out there as much as they could to get it to blow up. And so that's where it's like, that's why there's so many crap artists out there, because they've got marketing behind it.
Yeah.
And there's so many amazing artists who don't get anything because they're not
relatively unknown.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like kind of why movies as well. I think when you
for sure
like there's some phenomenal scripts out there. I'm sure of it. But unless you have a foot in the door, how are you supposed to create this amazing script? And like movies are obviously so expensive to make. So unless you don't have the financial backing, it's never going to get made.
Yeah, even then, there's been. Like Get Out, I think how much was that? Like a $30 million budget, and it made like 200 or 300 million.
Exactly.
One of my all-time favorite movies. Like it's amazing.
That's good. What is it? With Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting.
Oh, Good Will Hunting. Again, small budget. Like
the
A-list actors, they weren't at the time.
No, absolutely not. Yeah,
Robin Williams probably was, but like
they really had to pitch that script.
Yeah, and I know they pitched it a lot of times.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson, Lord of the Rings, one of the most successful, if not the most successful trilogy ever made. Heaps of studios said no.
Yeah.
He had to keep pitching that to studios.
Yeah.
And Kevin Hart, 400 times he pitched. There's so many people. Almost anyone. I saw a video of Ed Sheeran, and he's just like, you just got to be consistent. You've just got to keep going at it. Consistency
is really key for sure. Yeah. And I think it is easier now to kind of get your voice out there and get your, this book especially, like just get it out there to the public, especially with self-publishing and all the routes that you can go there. But movies is another whole different ballpark, I reckon.
Yeah, but I mean, it is, but also you can create a film with your phone if you want to.
Yeah. Like
we could sit here and say, oh, you're never going to be able to make a movie because you need millions of dollars. Or we could say, just go make a movie. Just go do it.
Yeah.
And then you make another movie, and then you make another movie, and you get better and better and better. So by the time you've got that budget, you've got, you're ready to make a good one.
Exactly.
As opposed to just sitting around waiting until you're going to get that magic budget.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, where the creative thinking comes in. Like, if you're in this mindset where you can't do it, that's when, your high school experience comes in again. But just think big, man. Think big. Yeah.
And I think the key to a lot of what we've said is just ask.
Yeah.
Like, you just got to ask. Like, you reached out to me and told me about yourself, and here you are on the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple. And
especially with social media. Like, DM's so easy, right? Yeah.
And what is there to be scared of?
Yeah.
You've got no hidden agenda. You're just wanting to connect.
Exactly.
The other day, I reached out to an amazing woman who's got a company called Shine From Within, and she's in Queensland, and she does youth programs and youth education, just like kind of what I'm in, that kind of industry. So I was like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to have you on the show next time you're in Sydney. Can we have a quick chat and connect? I'd love to like pick your brain about some things. We had a chat. She's got a youth program where you can become a mentor. She just said, hey, you should come in this $2,000. You can have it for free. I'd love to have you speak at some of our events. And it's like, all I did was just say hello and reach out.
Yeah.
In the DMs.
Like, we just need connection always, right? So if I reach out to someone or you reach out to someone, if they say no, they say no. But, if they're nice and genuine and looking to connect and build their network, then they will say yes.
And think about it this way. If someone reached out to you, how would you feel? Pretty good.
Yeah.
If someone said, hey man, I'd love to connect. Do you have time for a chat or something? Would you say yes?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think most people would say yes.
For sure.
And so if you were willing to do that, understand that most people are as well. Even if I've got 10,000 followers or whatever, it's like a lot of people will reach out to me and I have a chat with them and I'll be like, I didn't think you'd respond. And it's like, what do you mean? Of course I'm going to respond. Like, I respond to every single person who messages me.
Yeah.
I love it. And people will send like audios back and forth and they'll ask me some questions and stuff. And it's like, just ask. I think it's one of the biggest things is just ask and leverage that asking opportunity to get into an internship or something.
Yeah.
And then do more than is asked of you.
Yeah.
And you're good.
Ask is the foot of the foot in the door.
Yeah.
And then you've got to, that's when the work begins. Once you have that foot in, then you've got to get the arm in and the full body after that. My
sister, who's 18, just doing HSC right now. So as a family, we've gone 2 or 3 times to the Great Barrier Reef, called an island called Lady Elliot Island. It's like this tiny island, amazing, one of the best spots on the reef. And so we've gone there like twice, and she loves it. And she's kind of interested in like biology, like science sort of stuff. And we're like, well, you could go study, or you could reach out to this guy who runs this program in Lady Elliot. And she's just reached out to him an email, and they've gone back and forth. And now she's got potentially an opportunity to go like study up the coast near that island and go back and forth and kind of do cool stuff up there. And it's like, how cool is that? And all she did was reach out to him. And she's just like, he responds so quickly.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you're young and, you don't even have to have experience. Like, if you're young, willing, and enthusiastic about it, a lot of people are going to say yes.
Most people. And once again, if they say no, they'll either say, I don't think anyone would say no. They just might not respond. Yeah. Move on.
Exactly.
Next person. I've invited people on the show who haven't responded. It sucks. Move on.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll respond in a year's time or something when I've got a bigger audience or whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, just ask. It's and that 5-year thing, how I said people, the generations change over the past 5 years. People are scared. I know, young girls and young guys who are scared to send an email.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They'll just be scared to just be like, oh, I don't want to email him. That's scary. It's like, what do you mean that's scary?
Is that scarier than in person? Like,
in person's way scarier, but they're scared to just send a text or an email or message on DM. I'm like, this could be a huge opportunity for you. And it just blows my mind. Like, it's not getting on the phone. Like, sure, I understand that's a little bit scary sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, I can't hammer that point home enough.
We are the generation of overthinkers. I don't know where that's come from. Again, probably from us growing up with social media 24/7. I think we were like just on the cusp of it. Like, I think I was like 11, 12 when I signed up. And it's so funny actually looking at memories of like you texting as a kid. Oh God, the English was bad back then. Yeah. Don't know how I became a writer then.
I remember when I started my Facebook and I was like 12 or 13 or something, and my mum was helping me set it up. Yeah. And one of the girls from my class like sent me a friend request or something. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, should I add her or not? Like, I want to only have close friends or something. And she was like a really close friend at the time. I'm like, why would I not have added her? But that was my mindset. I was just like, I didn't know what it was. It was a new platform. And yeah, as you mentioned, I kind of dodged that social media as my childhood. Yeah. More adolescence, teenage, I had it. And
I think that's still so important though. Yeah. Like with, especially, I guess, as relationship and girls, start coming into the picture, or guys, that's when, I guess, the real problems start, I guess, because that's where conflict begins. For me, anyway. Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's when you start to overthink yourself. You're like, oh no, should I text this girl? Have I said the wrong thing or have I said the right thing?
Have I responded too quickly?
Exactly.
Has she lost interest?
I hate that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that drives me nuts.
Honestly, as soon as like I get a notification now, and it's such a bad mindset, it's nearly like validation. You're like, oh, I've got someone
waiting for
messaging
me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous mindset. So I think that's why I like Nepal so much, because I just lost connection, and I was like, wow, this is a sick world.
How long?
So we hiked up to base camp for, I think it was a 14-day trip.
14 days?
Yeah.
No social media?
No social media.
That's good.
It was so good.
Yeah, because I've done 2-day retreats and stuff with no social media, no food as well and stuff. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really nice. But especially, I can't remember the last time. That was probably that retreat like a year and a half ago was the last time I went no phone for no screen for a long period of time. Because even if I go no phone, I'll be on my computer all day, and then maybe I'll watch some TV or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it's just always screens.
I think that's where this idea of challenges and the competition starts to kick in, because, you challenge yourself for 2 days to stop it, right? But if you do something like every month, so, I wrote every day for a month just to, get into a habit, right? But then for another month, I did a cold shower, every day for a month, just to see if I could do it. I don't know if it was, again, competing with myself.
It's a mental toughness.
Yeah. Just a month challenge. Maybe that's the New Year's resolution for people out there, just to, set themselves a monthly goal and making sure they follow through with it.
Yeah, no, it's funny, this conversation, because I'm working on a program for young people. Like I want to get 10, 20 people and do like a 6-week program or something and take them through kind of a lot of stuff we've just talked about and set challenges. Like, you've got to ask this many people, you've got to do this sort of stuff and try to break their mindset and because I think even though a lot of people might hear this and be like, okay, Byron said, just ask, Logan's told us about how to get an internship and just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
I understand it can still be scary.
Absolutely.
And I think we both have quite extroverted, or our character is quite out there. And I know a lot of people are very different.
Yep.
And so maybe our perspective is quite frustrating because we're quite different personalities and it comes naturally easier to us. So I just want to acknowledge the people who do struggle with that a lot more. And I think the answer is you've just got to start doing it.
Yeah.
Like once a day, set a challenge for yourself. I'm going to DM one person a day for 30 days.
Yeah.
That's easy. It's like 3 minutes, 5 minutes a day.
I think there's a lot of, I don't know if it's, I've noticed it more recently, but I think people are, we're visual creatures, right? Especially with being born into screens now, we have to see things. So put up a board or something, put down a list of, and actually write it down so you can see it. Again, this board behind you could be a good one where you literally just, dot point of, things that you're going to do. Mark it off when you're done. Like just so you see it every day and it's there and it's, again, we're visual. So.
Exactly. And a lot of people use like a vision board or whatever. I know David Goggins, you know him?
Yep.
Yeah, he had like an accountability mirror or something where he'd like write stuff in the mirror and he'd look at it every single morning. So it's just, and people will write stuff in their mirrors as well. They'll like write whatever, where they brush their teeth, they'll write stuff on their mirror. So when they're brushing their teeth, they're just reading this. Yeah. And it sounds stupid, it sounds cheesy, but it's, affirmation. It's just, you're constantly reminding yourself. So if you set a challenge like, DM one person, do a cold shower every day or meditation or whatever it is, and you're constantly reading it, so you're going to be, oh yeah, I've got to do that today. I've got to do that today.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, no, I think that there's going to be, maybe 10% of people that are that like proactive with it. It's always that other 90 that it's like, how do we change the mindset of this, doing stuff culture essentially? Like otherwise they're just going to sit on their phone, sit on the PlayStation and just kind of, watch the screen. Like, how do you change it?
And here's the thing, like, the more people who are doing that, if you're listening to this, that's good because that's less competition. That means it's even easier. If 90% of people aren't asking people and aren't reaching out, then it's so ridiculously easy to stand out as a young person. Yeah. If you just reach out to them and put yourself out there, just go be very curious.
Curiosity is a big keyword there.
Yeah. Be curious and provide value.
Yep.
If you've got those two things when you reach out to someone, like it'll open up so many doors and it'll be so much better.
Yeah. I think the key there is make creativity and make hard work normal. I think that's the key. And it doesn't matter, if you're an introvert, extrovert. I think, in this book specifically, I've created this terminology of a contextual who, someone who changes their personality based on the situation, like I was saying earlier. But it doesn't matter. Just make it normal, even if it's just a personal goal. In fact, I didn't tell anyone that I was writing this book for 3 years.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So
Dude.
I rocked up to one day to my parents' house, and literally I had a book, and I was like, and they're like, wait, what? That's how did you do that?
That's some serious self-motivation.
Yeah.
Like, I'm actually the opposite of you in that term. I had a guy who come on ages ago, Jonathan, and he talks about the different motivation types.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they all are, but one of them is accountability. Like, people they won't do anything unless there's accountability.
Yeah.
And I think I'm a mix of that and a few other ones. But like, I will tell people my projects just as like accountability. So that I'll tell my parents I'm doing this. I'll tell everyone like, oh yeah, I'm working on this. I'm going to start a podcast.
Yeah.
Because then I know they're going to be like, hey Byron, when's that podcast starting?
Yeah, they
like,
kind of go on to you.
But if I don't tell anyone, then it's so easy to give up because no one knows and I'm not failing and no one can see it. But if I tell everyone and I have to publicly fail, it's like more of that kind of thing. So that's how my brain works.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I definitely see the mindset for that. But for me, it was like, I didn't want to let people down, I guess.
Yeah, but that's why I did it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to let people down, so that way I'll get it done.
Yeah. So if I told them and then, 6 years later there was nothing, then they just look at you different. And I think because of how personal this, book was, I think I didn't write it for anyone else. Like it
Audience
was
none.
Audience of none. Yeah, I wrote it for myself, which is very powerful, and I definitely encourage other people to do that because I learned a lot about myself when you actually write it down, because then you see in the characters, you're like, oh, maybe I relate to this guy as well. But yeah.
Yeah, and of course, as we mentioned, the characters, even though it's fictional, it's always going to have a little bit of... Is the character male?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's always going to have touches of your personality and who you are, probably, even though you're trying to create a fictional character.
Yeah. I've even put little Easter eggs of my childhood in there.
Yeah.
So I know what parts are based on my childhood and my parents, of course. But even, my mood on the day kind of is reflected through the book. So if I was, just on a downslope for, a week or so, you can see in the writing and, I know that. So it's kind of like history within the book. So one of the chapters is actually called Coordinate, which is the company that I work at. And I don't know, on the day I was, I think it was the first week that I worked there or something like that. And I don't know, it just fit with the language that I was after there. So I just named the chapter. But every time I look at it now, it's like, oh, well, that was the week that I started work.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nearly like a photo book without the photos.
Yeah. It's like an energy book. It kind of shows how you're feeling that
exactly.
day. And they say, because Joe, I don't know if you know the episode with Joe I did recently, titled How to Open 1,000 Doors. One of my really cool episodes. So he writes every morning for 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah,
that's insane. So he does a 5:30 club with me. We do different clubs because we live in different areas, but we're at a cafe at 5:30 and he'll just write for because he loves it, and that's when his energy's at the best. It's like when you've woken up, you've got no distractions, it's 5:30, it's 6 o'clock, no one else is awake, you can just write. And it's really important to, especially anything that's high level creative, do that at your best level of energy when you're in the best space. Otherwise it's almost no point in doing it because you don't want to write something that's rubbish.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think looking back, obviously I think I did it most of the writing at 9 o'clock to 10 to midnight most nights, actually.
Oh really? So you're in a night
I was the night one.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's I think that I would do it again in the morning just to see the difference. Because at night, obviously your emotions are affected from the day that was, right? So if I was, again,
if you had a bad
mood, it's kind of reflected in the writing. So it was, again, with the edit that I had to kind of tidy a lot of things up to keep it consistent, because the mood was kind of up, down, up, down. Yeah, no, super interesting.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely something to think about. But anyways, this has been an awesome conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I'm sure you know what's coming. What would your number one piece of advice be for the younger generation? High school, university, could be anything we've spoken about.
I'm going to say 3 things. I think be kind, push innovation, and probably patience is the last one. So kind of to delve into that. Sorry. So to be kind, obviously, the world just needs kindness, man. There's a lot of bad people out there, but if you can, there's this old quote that says, if you can affect one person a day, just purely making them smile, one day, every day for a year, then you affect 365 lives. And like, again, look at the big picture, and it's just one a day.
But how many people, but then you've affected their lives, and then they go on to affect someone else.
Exactly.
And they've affected 10,000 lives.
Yeah. So just be kind. Yeah. Second one, be innovative. Again, just push creativity and don't feel like you need to fit in the box. Especially in high school, I know you want to fit in, and I know, again, judgment was so terrifying to me. But even in your spare time, just push creativity, because in the long run, that's going to help you out. And then lastly, I said be patient. And I think this is very much our generation. We're trying to do things so quick. And
it's not our fault.
No.
Like, I'm not blaming anyone. Like,
no.
The phones. It's so easy. We get everything we want. Uber Eats. Everything comes to us so quickly. We just naturally don't have much patience.
Exactly. And it's, I think it's also then the idea for me, it's like, oh, what if there's no tomorrow? Am I going to be happy with what I've done so far? So I've just tried to do as much as I possibly could, so that, if there's no tomorrow, that I'm kind of satisfied. But the thing is, I'm never satisfied. You're never going to be satisfied.
It's just human nature.
Exactly. It's going to be the journey rather than the destination.
Yeah.
So you got to be patient. Again, maybe with like reaching out and stuff to people. Be patient with the response. And live in the now.
An important part of that patience is understanding that, how do I get a job? How do I write a book? Any of these big projects. Brick by brick,
absolutely.
Breaking it down.
Yep.
And then understanding, all right, it's going to take me, if I write this many words for this many days, it's going to take me 2 years.
Yep.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Now I know that. Now I've got to enjoy it for 2 years.
Yes.
I want the book now.
Yeah.
You can't go in with that mindset.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're probably going to rush it, and it's not going to be complete. And then, if you want to produce something that's good quality.
Absolutely. So yeah, patience. Last one.
Awesome, man. Well, for anyone who's interested in connecting with you, checking out the book, finding you online, where's the best place to go?
Yeah. So go to anoutsiderontheinside.com.
That's an outsider on the inside.
.com.
That's the name of the book. So outsiderontheinside.com.
Yeah. Or just hit me up on socials again. Slide into the DMs if you like.
Yeah.
So just Logan Ayers on Instagram.
And that'll all be linked below. But anyways, Logan,
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thanks so much.
That's it for this episode of the Driven Young podcast. Thank you so much for listening to the entire episode. That means the world to me. And if you got some value out of it, please shoot me a message on Instagram or reach out to me. Or I would love for you to leave a rating or review on this podcast. So make sure you are subscribed, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.